The following paid program is
Manchester 65 is New England's newest live music
purposes only and is solely responsible for its content. The following paid program is furnished by Coalition Radio. It's for basic entertainment and informational purposes only and is solely responsible for its content. It does not necessarily reflect the views of Cumulus Media, its management, or its staff.
You're listening to the Coalition, Rhode Island's source for news and every side of the issue. You're on AM 790, your source for news, politics, life-affirming issues. We're here for you today. I'd like to first welcome my special guest again this evening. He's a recurring series of guest appearances. Tony Jones, welcome back to the show, Tony.
Good evening, P.O.
How are you this week?
You know, it's amazing to me that in this room tonight, we have a guy named Mike Smith, a guy named Tony Jones, and a guy named P.O., and there's only one guy with a fake name.
You assume so, Tony. You assume so. Well, it was another enthralling week in Rhode Island politics. This week, of course, was, what did Mike Rollins from the Libertarian Party call it? Heck Week. Signature Heck Week. All along, those weren't Hare Krishnas, those weren't people begging, those were people asking for your signature, and hopefully, even if you are opposed to those people's politics, you took the opportunity to give them a signature so that they'd take their rightful place on the ballot and fight the body politic. You were involved in your own signature drive.
It was brutal, I gotta say, and as a guy who actually has to work for a living, I don't have 2 weeks to just hang out on street corners and collect signatures, but we did end up bringing in close to 1,150 signatures last week. And as the old Beatles/Joe Cocker song says, I get by with a little help from my friends. I had some people really step up for me, and it's greatly appreciated.
Right. Now I heard Cumberland stood tall for Tony Jones.
That's right.
Absolutely. Cumberland is a hotbed of radical politics. That's what I've heard. Yeah. But no, that's great stuff. And, you know, across the state now we're getting anecdotally the fact that even though people weren't thrilled with the numbers in terms of opposition to the political elite, the people who are there are clearly committed candidates who have got a plan, they've got a clue. You know, a lot of these folks, like yourself, you know, you just brought up a great point. You actually have a job.
Several of them, actually.
Yeah, and some of them even pay. You've got a full-time job in the defense industry. It's highly skilled labor that you're involved in. That's a 35, 40-hour a week commitment, isn't it for you?
Usually 40 to 50.
Really? Okay.
Depending on what's going on.
So when our founders envisioned this nation, did they envision a group of people whose entire livelihood from birth to their mortal coil passing relying completely on government? Or did they envision people who actually were committed and part of the community, whether they worked, owned businesses, and then getting involved in politics on a voluntary basis? What do you think that they believed in?
I was watching one of the god-awful, almost borderline cable access talking head shows today.
You mean like ours?
And worse than this, if you can imagine, because this is on television, so you know, we're kind enough to not make people look at our hideous selves. This was on television. And they were advocating, one of the guests were advocating that Rhode Island needs a full-time legislator. That way people will take it more seriously because it'll be a full-time job and you'll find more opposition candidates
for the love of
in
God.
Our one-party, one-way system. And that is just, can you say glorified welfare?
Well, I mean, it's... Again, one of my mantras is that public service, and I use that term loosely because public service does not include highly compensated government jobs. And that could be anyone from Joe Montalbano to that guy, what was his name, Robitaille, who ran for governor, the small business guy. Yeah. It's supposed to be for people who want to help lives, not get one. So the notion of a full-time legislature with even the exponentially, I mean, the hundreds of millions of dollars that they spend just to run their own little feted self-help group up there on Halitosis Hall, how much money then will they need? How much shrimp cocktail? I mean, Chris, the shrimp cocktail and Scingilli market in the state will explode overnight.
Federal Hill will have to double because they'll be selling so many spaghetti dinners.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's get down to it. You know, one of one of the mantras of this show is, first of all, we're the show that routinely has independent and challenging candidates on our show for an extended conversation, not just quick 5-minute talks, not quick sound bites, but really an extended conversation of philosophy, what their goals for office are, what their personal background is. And in doing so, we routinely say that we don't handicap elections. We're not interested in if you're going to win. We're interested in why you should. We don't talk about fundraising efforts. We don't really focus on the minutia, the handicapping of the race in and of itself. The whole point of this show is to give people an opportunity to talk about their opinions, to advance their causes. All good. So in doing so, we've stuck to that pretty religiously. So which is why I'm going to address a certain issue on a separate segment. Later on in the show, we've got Mike Smith, who's running for Rhode Island State Senate. He's running in the Newport district with other parts of Aquidneck Island included. He's running against Teresa Paiva-Weed, who we affectionately refer to as the Weed. All right.
We love the weed on this program.
We love the weed on a couple different levels, but
That's a different segment.
Different segment. But kudos to the people from Newport. On a couple of different levels. We've had a variety of folks in with the casino issue. Tonight we're going to focus on some of their state senate politics. They run high level. They run smart. They run a real new millennium campaign. They embrace social media. They run on the issues. And that's possibly tied to why Aquidneck Island in general is possibly is the most successful part of Rhode Island, whether it be in defense, whether it be in tourism. They shine on so many different levels because they're wicked smart people, and they run high end, as opposed to this show. So I just got to talk about the Weed. To me, the Weed, Teresa Paiva-Weed, whatever her name is, she embodies everything that is wrong with Rhode Island state politics. We've got a contest running up on our Facebook page. If you go to the Coalition Radio on Facebook, you'll see a little picture I have. And whimsically, I'd ask for people to kind of ascribe whether it be a fairy tale or horror character assigned to Ms. Weed. I was taken to task.
You were heckled.
I was heckled by another gentleman in politics who we respect a lot, who continues to take the high road. I will not take the high road, no matter how far for us. Please go to the Coalition. We are offering a $5 gift card. This time, you don't have to have the $5 gift card of coffee at the Coffee Exchange with me. That's actually probably the best part of the contest. But if you can come up with a really unique, I've got a couple ideas myself, but I'll hold off on them, a really unique fairy tale or literary character that you would like to compare to the Weed in that picture, please let me know.
There's so many.
Or you can call it in. We are taking calls again this week. We're dabbling in it in our short time spot. It's 888-345-0790. Shelby will be happy to take your calls and screen them.
She's free.
She's only going to put through the real lunatics. So we want to draw the very, very worst of Rhode Island, in keeping with the tenor of the show. But let me ask you a few rhetorical questions. Folks say, all right, why do you see this person as an overriding evil? Because she comes off to so many people as just so darn pleasant. Kind of like that aunt you've got who does macrame in the front of the town hall meeting.
Again, the complete opposite of you.
Yes, she. People like her. She's able to maintain long-term relationships. But she represents to me everything that is wrong with Rhode Island. My earliest memories of the Weed go back a few generations politically. I remember her back when she was just a mere state senator. And harken back to a Helicon days, there was a guy named Leo Skenyon who ran some bastardized form of the Parking Violations Bureau for the state of Rhode Island. And shockingly, I believe the number was somewhere around $40 million disappeared. Whoops. You hate when that happens. Just through chronic incompetence, poor record keeping, lack of any computerized systems, all the things that you associate with real businesses or real government. Chaos ensued. There were meetings. There was much sturm and drang. And at the very last minute, there was supposed to be a publicized meeting which would have been broadcast on Capitol TV. So that the minions of talk radio land, people like me, could listen in and find out what was really happening. At the very, very last minute, in a shocking move, Ms. Weed, who was going to run said hearings, moved it to a smaller room in the building without any Capitol TV access. I was shocked. Her political rise can also be tied into former state Senate President Kelly, who engaged in, let's just say, some egregious behavior on a personal level. Ms. Weed, as I remember, trying to document this, as I remember, was one of the first to leap to his defense, and in doing so ensured her path along the gilded halls of Rhode Island government. So we flash forward years and years later. Let me just do a little dramatic reading. Tony, I'm going to ask you a question. Who was Senate President for nearly the generation that it took to pass marriage equality?
A generation, eh?
All right. Yeah. Who was Senate President for most of that?
The weed?
Okay. Who effectively blocked ethics reform legislation in Rhode Island Senate for almost a generation?
A lot of people, and also the weed.
Okay. Who almost single-handedly this year attempted to block master lever reform legislation in the Senate? Anyone?
A handful of people, including the weed.
The weed. Okay. Whose reputed toady, head of the Newport Chamber of Commerce, was advanced to Governor Cherry and later became famous as Keith Stokes, the head of our own Rhode Island Economic Development Commission, who brought us a lifetime of happy memories and bills with 38 special. Who would that be?
Would that happen to be the weed?
That would be the weed. All right. Who steered the Senate Judiciary Committee into supporting and ultimately passing the judgeship of one Joe Montalbano?
The weed?
Okay, we see a trend. How about Richard Leach, that one of our faves here on the coalition?
You mean the leech?
Yeah, the leech. Who helped the leech? The weed? Who has been Senate President during a period of education reform that I call nothing less than an educational holocaust here in the state of Rhode Island, where we have amongst the worst public schools in the nation? Who was Senate President then?
Is that the weed?
Bueller? All right. How about the epic collapse of our infrastructure here in the state? Who was Senate President then?
You know, I was driving up here today and I hit a pothole again, the same pothole I hit a few weeks ago, and I think a couple fillings came out of my teeth.
Right? How about the de-evolution of the business climate into the worst of the nation? Who was Senate President then?
Is that why guys like you have to commute to Massachusetts to get any steady work?
Every day I join thousands of Rhode Islanders with the poor, the tired. We put our meager belongings on our little burros and we drive north to do the jobs that Massachusetts people won't do. Yes, that would be me. Who was in charge then?
Would it happen to be the weed?
Right. Scandals like 38 Studios, the landfill. Who was in charge then? Yeah, anybody? Bueller? Yeah, the weed. Who used parliamentary trickery to block E-Verify in the form of my former state senator, Dan Connors, to block E-Verify the vote. Who would that have been? Crickets. Yes, that would have been M. Teresa Paiva Weed. So, people say, okay, Pat, what? Why are you so nasty? Why are you so just so vehement about this?
I just wish that you lived in Newport. I mean, I'm sure Mike's going to do a great job running, but if you lived in Newport, I'd vote for you.
If let me ask you this: if someone broke into your house and stole your flat screen TV, you'd be pretty peeved, wouldn't you? If you owned one.
That's true. Yeah, that would help.
That would help, yeah. All right. So why is it that people don't take it personally? I can tell you, we joke about the PO taxpayer thing, whether it be the PO taxpayer or the pissed off taxpayer. One of the reasons why I'm both PO and pissed off is because that I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars that I clearly do not have on my children's education so that I can give them the opportunities to get the hell out of this state. All right? That's why I'm pissed. That's why they call me the PO. So, yes, I take it personally. And to the gentleman who was aggrieved today because I may have littered his Facebook page with sarcastic references of the nature of Ms. Paiva Weed, okay, guilty. Absolutely guilty. I'll take blame for that. I won't do it again. I'll treat him like a gentleman because he is one. But in other places of Facebook, I'm going to do whatever I can from this podium, from this microphone, on a personal level to advance the campaign of Mr. Smith. Because you know why? Because he runs a business, he's got a clue, and he's going to make changes. And the single most important election that happens this year is not going to be governor. Tony, sadly, it's not going to be lieutenant governor.
No, not at all.
It's not going to be treasurer.
It's definitely not going to be secretary of state.
It's not going to be secretary of state. It's, one could argue attorney general, but arguably one of the two or three most important elections that's going to happen in this cycle is going to take place in Newport. And it's going to take place because you have an opportunity to change politics as they stand today. One person, there are only one or two people, Mr. Mattiello, Pauline Walnuts himself, and Ms. Weed, all right, stand for everything that is wrong with Rhode Island politics. So it's up to the people in Newport to take this opportunity and make changes. If you don't make the change, we have seen the enemy. He is us. We have no one to blame but ourselves.
So are you PO or are you PO this week? That's what I want to know.
I just got the college bill. I'm PO.
Oh, you're definitely PO.
Well, That's this segment on the Coalition. We're going to be back in a few minutes. We've got this week's episode of Joey Paolino's Big Lie right after the break, and then we're going to go right to Mike Smith, candidate for Rhode Island Senate. You're listening to AM 790, your source for news, talk, business, and, of course, the great New York Yankees.
Manchester 65 is New England's newest live music and events venue. If you're not completely enjoying your current live music experience, there is another option. Manchester 65 is large enough to support touring acts, yet small enough for that local feel. For upcoming events, go to manchester65.com. Make it your place. manchester65.com.
ProvidenceNightOut.com is a one-stop destination website where you'll discover a comprehensive guide of everything that the Providence area has to offer. Nightlife, entertainment, dining and dancing, community and family events, and so much more. Download the free app called My Night Out. It's ProvidenceNightOut.com.
Mike's Professional Tree Service offers top-of-the-line tree removal, trimming, stump grinding, stump removal, and so much more. Mike's Professional Tree Service will do everything to safeguard your home and property and is fully licensed and insured. Call them today at 401-823-7485 for a free estimate on tree service, tree removal, trimming, and tree care. That's 401-823-7585. Mike's Professional Tree Service are the tree experts serving all of Rhode Island. Online at mikesprotree.com. That's mikesprotree.com. Midday Records is a label that is comprised of local artists and exists for the sole purpose of helping other local artists find new opportunities and to help build a more thriving New England music scene. Midday Records hosts the area's fastest-growing music-related networking event, the Midday Social, books Midday Records presents shows throughout New England, releases compilations featuring local music, promotes bands through the Midday blog, are the co-founders of Music for Pause, and has recently started an artist development and management division. Stay up to date with Midday Records by checking them out on your favorite social media site like Facebook and Twitter, and find them online at middayrecords.com. That's middayrecords.com.
Yankees baseball on AM 790 Talk and Business.
Swung on and driven to deep left. That ball is high. It is far. It is gone. Zealous Wheeler drills a two-run home run over the high wall in left.
Catch all the action all season long from pregame to postgame as the Yankees do battle to win the East and get back to the postseason.
Wheels up for Zealous.
The Yankees at Baltimore, a 7:25 pregame tonight on AM 790.
Welcome back to the Coalition on Talk Radio on AM 790, your stations for news, talk, business. You're in this week's episode of Joey Paolino, Boy Mayor, Lie of the Week. It's a wonderful thing when you can kind of make things up as you go along. If you come from the true 1%, and I define the 1% as those elitists who come from either government or I'll call it government-enabled crony capitalistic business world, if you're born into money, if you've got all the advantages and you use that to leverage a position in government, which you then use to leverage a position in the community, which you then leverage to use in a position of finance, you then take from the community, not give back to, but literally take from, steal from, through trickery, through coercion, it's got to be good. As Mel Brooks said, it's good to be king. You know, one of the big lies, we talk about them every week here. We talk about the fact that this is not a casino, it's a jobs bill. Okay. We talk about how there's going to be concerts are going to. Billy Joel is going to play a 700-seat arena.
Piano man himself.
There you go. We talk about the notion that it's not the money, that these are jobs, working jobs. We talk about the $6 million to $9 million, the hundreds of millions of dollars that Newport's going to get. We talk all about all of that. But I think one of the most interesting facets of this has been Mr. Paolino's attempt to reposition this not only as a jobs bill, but as a destination Monaco style. We call it Monaco meets Mineral Spring. style resort. Let's put the lie to that. He wants to emphasize table games. He wants to emphasize the salon. He wants to emphasize the concert, all of that. Yet at the same time, he won't renounce slot machines. Slot machines have been referred to by some people as forms of video crack. Slot machines are what drive the economics of casinos. Slot machines are the most regressive form of gambling possible in an environment where you're literally taking money with like a big vacuum cleaner and you're sucking it out of the local economy. Tony Jones, one of our other guests on the show, had a post this week about what would happen if you would take $100 and just go out and spend it on a local business. Sort of a business bomb, we'll call it, where everybody in the whether it be the progressive or the libertarian movement just went out and spent $100 on a local business. Didn't matter where. What that would do to the economy, the fact that this money is cycled and recycled on other local businesses, on vendors, on employees, just the cumulative effect of that sort of fertilizing the local economy, what that would do for all of us.
Which I attempted to do at the Wickford Arts Festival today, and I got close to $100, but I mean, I didn't know what to buy. I mean, I was a little bit of a fish out of water, you know.
No Elvis on Velvet?
I mean, they didn't have any dogs playing poker either. But, you know, a lot of these folks, well, first of all, art's tax-free, so everything at the Wickford Arts Festival is tax-free today, which I love. You know, even my Dell's Lemonade, I don't think there was any tax on it. But these were mostly all local craftsmen and artisans that have shops in Rhode Island. They have studios. You know, and this is kind of a labor of love, kind of a side business for them, but they're going to put that money right back into the bottom line and stay afloat.
They're going to spend money at local art shops, art supplies. They're going to spend money on their family. It's great stuff. So let's talk about the facts. And the fact that I'm going to cite today is an MIT study. If you Google it, it's actually on newrepublic.com, amongst other places, where they actually do an analysis of where the money comes and where the money goes from. Here's the fact that's most compelling. 80% of revenue in Las Vegas comes from individual encounters with slot machines rather than social forms of play around a table. Let me repeat that. 80%. Those are the, unlike, say, the pictures you see of people at Foxwoods, or you'll soon see Mr. Palino touting in Newport, where you have happy white people smiling around the table, having the time of their life, throwing a dice.
No, they're all guys that look like you.
Yeah. Oxygen tanks in hand,
propped up against a slot machine on the first of the month,
peeing in a cup. That's what you get. 80% of that money, and that represents again the most regressive form of gambling. That's the money that just goes right out the back door, right out of the community. That's the money that would be spent on local hardware stores. That's the money that would be spent taking people out to any one of the great restaurants in Newport. That's the money that would be spent, no longer on tolls, but that's the money that would be spent. Reconditioning someone's house, the new roof, the business, the bed and breakfast that needs an upgrade. That's the money that would be spent on local automobiles, to local car dealers. Any of those ways that money can be spent is taken away in the form of this regressive tax, because it is a tax, sucked out of the economy. So I would say to you, $6 to $9 million, peanuts. When you study about what that represents in terms of money withdrawn from the economy on literally a daily basis. In closing, remember, Rhode Island's not being helped by the current, whether it be Twin River, what's Newport Grand. They're not helping the economy. One of the reasons we're in this economic morass, this mess, is because those forms of gambling, that form of taxation already exists.
Now, our own Twin River recently, as I'm sure you know, was recently passed that you can get up to $50,000 in credit. And I was wondering what you thought about that.
Excellent. I mean, and that was passed by the same, was it Mary Ellen Goodwin was the senator who passed that? The self-considered progressive who is now working to get people further into debt to the casino overlords. That's wonderful. And on top of that, we were treated to the notion that a third casino in Atlantic City, because casino gambling is such a growth business, the third casino, the Trump man himself, is going down for the count. So, folks, there's no there. So let's get off to a rousing start. Then we've got a few minutes before our hard break. I want to introduce Mike Smith. He's running for the Rhode Island State Senate in opposition to the aforementioned weed. For the rest of the show, we're really going to focus on Mr. Smith, his background, what he believes in. I think my diatribe kind of... Did I cover all the bases?
I think so. I think you got to most of it.
The court order is on its way? Okay. Mike, we have kind of a reputation for being radio stalkers here.
Actually, I was driving up here today, and on the side of Wampanoag Trail, there was someone just getting the crap beat out of them by a state trooper, and I was thinking, there might not be a show today. That's probably P.O. on the side of the road, making friends.
Well, I'm going to call this Mr. Smith goes to Smith Hill. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here on a beautiful Sunday.
Well, thank you for coming in, and thank you for running. Give us the background. Give us the Mike Smith story.
I'm 46. I'm a father of three. I have two sons in college. One's in the reserves, and I have a daughter who's 14. And basically, I saw Miss Pivoweed was running unopposed again, and that was one of the things he just said, I'm just going to do this. And I'm a small business owner. It's a growing business, but only a few employees right now. But basically, I just felt it was time. I mean, it's ridiculous what's going on in this state, and it's ridiculous what's going on in Newport. The casino is just one issue. It's across the board. And I really feel that I would like to make a change. I would like to be part of a change that happens in Providence, and I think it's possible.
Talk about your experience as a business. How long have you had your own business, roughly?
I was with a company for 19 years, and I worked my way up from just a regular sales guy on the road to being the president of sales, and it was a electronics manufacturer. Mm-hmm. And this company was in Massachusetts, but about 3.5 years ago, I decided I wasn't happy with the structure and the way things were going, so I decided to go on my own.
One of the few growth industries in this state, or one of the few, I'll call it non-tourism industries sustaining this state, is maritime and the marine industry, right?
Correct.
So how important is it that we have folks who are willing to invest in the community in Newport? I'll call it Aquidneck Island. Let's call it Aquidneck Island for the rest of our conversation. How important is the marine electronics and marine construction industry to Aquidneck Island?
It's important, and I don't really think there's enough. A lot of the building and the electronics end and items such as that are in Bristol, which is great. Newport itself, Newport and Jamestown, there's not a lot of marine industry. There's a lot of repair. There's a lot of overhaul. There's not manufacturing and high tech. There's a huge growing industry in the marine industry, and it's the submersibles and the robotics and the science part. And we're not seeing a lot of that coming to Rhode Island and to Aquidneck Island, and we really should be. That's just one area in the high tech field, but there's also lots of things we can do in high tech as far as bringing in various types, whether it's medical research and development, biotech, computer, and on.
And by all accounts, we're going to get into this after the break. By all accounts, Newport, because of the president of NUSC, if I get this right, that's the Naval Undersea Systems Center, the War College, the presence of EB nearby, and
right.
By all accounts, the lifestyle, the technology that exists, the conditions that exist, we should really be one of the centers of undersea development in this part of the world, correct?
Absolutely. We have URI, which is bringing out students that is one of the few schools that really teach underwater technology and science. And we have the education. Obviously, we have some of the greatest universities in the world here in Rhode Island, and we really we're seeing some great things happening in Quonset Point. But on Aquidneck Island, we're not seeing the kind of jobs that are going to be year-round. And that's really what I'm trying, what I've really thought for a long time, a year-round economy.
There you go. We're going to pick this up. You're listening to the Coalition on Talk Radio. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, and we're also on AM 790, your source for news, talk, and business. We'll be right back.
Manchester 65 is New England's newest live music and events venue. If you're not completely enjoying your current live music experience, there is another option. Manchester 65 is large enough to support touring acts, yet small enough for that local feel. For upcoming events, go to Manchester65.com. Make it your place. Manchester65.com.
AM 790 Talk and Business answers your financial questions weeknights at 6 p.m. It's the Dave Ramsey Show. Join Dave every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 p.m. as he takes to the airwaves to share practical answers for life's tough money questions. He presents common sense talk about your financial future, and his callers share their real stories about their lives and families. The Dave Ramsey Show, weeknights from 6 to 9 p.m. on AM 790 Talk and Business.
This is the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. Forget about the tiny house movement. How about a tiny apartment? The median apartment size in the U.S. is on the decline, down to 1,043 square feet, the smallest since 2002, according to the Census Bureau, as prices rise to a record $1.25 a square foot. Jonathan Miller, president of Appraiser Miller Samuel, says the difficulty of getting a mortgage is one of the things behind all this.
It's almost a phenomenon, a necessity, where you have these tight credit conditions, essentially delaying people moving from renting to buying.
Apartments are 7% smaller in Atlanta and Denver than they were 10 years ago, 11% smaller in Austin, and 15% smaller in Boston. Many of the residents of the new smaller apartments are millennials, paying top market rents for small but upscale apartments with luxuries like cooking classes, dog wash stations, and poolside Wi-Fi. That's the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
Disruptive may be just another overused buzzword, but disruptions in business like network downtime, data loss, social media abuse, and limited bandwidth are downright disruptive. For businesses large or small, Barracuda Networks offers powerful, affordable, yet easy to implement content security, application delivery, and data protection solutions, all designed to prevent disruptions and simplify IT. For an online demo or to try any of our security or storage solutions risk-free for 30 days, visit barracuda.com/disruptive.
Attention homeowners. Quicken Loans has some important information regarding the U.S. government's Home Affordable Refinance Program, or HARP. Nearly 3 million homeowners have already taken advantage of this money-saving program. But there are so many more of you who could be saving hundreds of dollars every month on your mortgage. It's simple and easy. If you're one of the millions yet to take advantage, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com.
Important terms and conditions apply. Call us for cost information. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Use your unique talent to help end hunger. The One of 52 Hunger Network is a grassroots movement that allows you, as an individual, to have a major impact on ending hunger. No fees, only action in just 1 week a year. Join this Strength in Numbers network at oneof52.net. Do you have an upcoming party, gathering, or social event? Want experienced mobile sound entertainment? Then contact DJ Psycho Eddie. Having worked with several local and national acts, as well as charities, nonprofits, and the area's best live event venues, DJ Psycho Eddie can get the party started and keep it going. Contact DJ Psycho Eddie today at 401-338-0787 for a free consultation, or look for DJ Psycho Eddie on Facebook.
You're listening to the Coalition on Talk Radio, AM 790. Tony Jones, one of our regular guests here. Tony, where can they find the Coalition on Facebook and Twitter?
Well, I'm not as a classy radio presenter as you are, but I'll do what I can. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on Twitter @Coalition_radio. And, of course, don't forget to check out the podcast and the blogs at coalitionradio.us.
Wonderful. We've got with us this evening Mike Smith. He's running against Deborah. I keep calling her Deborah Paiva-Weed. Teresa Paiva-Weed for State Senate on Aquidneck Island. In the few minutes before our break, we spoke about his personal background. He does work in the dreaded private sector. He actually employs people. Imagine that. I think if you took the private work experience of the entire legislature, it could probably be condensed into a few years.
It's not true. Doreen Costa has a coffee shop now.
Okay.
She just doubled it.
Absolutely. We're talking cradle-to-grave government employees. Before the break, we were talking about your vision for Newport and Aquidneck Island. The notion that we've got capacity there and there's the potential for really unlimited growth in terms of the marine technology, and the undersea business. Tell us a little bit more about the Quidnick Island and what it could be.
Well, Quidnick Island we're looking at, there's a lot of lands that are opening up, and but there's also a lot of vacant lands as well. And to me, Newport is becoming more and more of an economy where it's becoming too seasonal. We have tourism is great, and we always want to encourage this. But what's happening is every winter the unemployment increases in the Newport area because it's become more of a service sector. For example, waitresses, waiters, people that work in restaurants, hotels, as they decline by November, they start to get they're laid off and they collect unemployment. It's become a trend. There should be more jobs that are bringing in that we're seeing across the country. When I travel for business, I look at towns like Greenville, South Carolina, Reno, Nevada, even a number of towns in Massachusetts are creating tech zones where they're offering tax-free benefit, tax-free for the businesses for 10 years. And it's a win-win because when a business employs somebody, that is where real revenue to a state comes. It's not from stealing money from a lady in a wheelchair that's playing slots all day. It comes from businesses that employ people. Those people get a paycheck. They go to restaurants. They buy things for their kids. They buy houses. This is how you build an economy.
We were talking about New Bedford during the break, and the fact that there's a little bit of a New Bedford renaissance. Joseph Abood just moved in, and think about buying a $6,000, $7,000, maybe $1,000 suit and finding out it was made in New Bedford. And there's a lot of parallels to Newport there.
Right. It's all about creating wealth, not redistributing wealth, isn't it?
Sure is.
You've got Nusk, as I mentioned before the break. You've got Electric Boat. You've got the Newport War College. You've got all the fundamentals plus proximity to Boston area colleges, as well as you mentioned some of the great Newport and Aquidneck Island. By relative comparison to the rest of mainland Rhode Island, is an economic success. Has the government, in terms of state government, been any real factor in that at all, or is it despite the best efforts of the state government?
It definitely is despite, because the business owners I talk to, and even in these last few weeks, the business owners I've been talking to, Newport, the residents in Newport and Jamestown, but Newport primarily, we just feel like we've become Providence's ATM machine. The sad part about this, and the reason why I'm running, is Senator Weed is supposed to be the representative of the people of Newport and Jamestown. And yes, she's Senate President, but primarily she is a representative of the people of Newport and Jamestown, and their votes, their wishes, what they want to see happen in their community. And what's going on right now is we're actually at war with our own representative. Our own representative doesn't even want to go with the wishes of the people, primarily on this casino, but even in her failed attempt to raise tolls and other issues that have just been going against the people of Newport and Jamestown. And she's supposed to be protecting the interests of our town, and that's not occurring.
You talk about the toll situation. What's astonishing to me is in most parts of America, whether it be on a local government basis or even on a national level, when people and representatives or senators attain through just being around, seniority, attain high levels of power, usually they work on behalf to bring home the pork, to bring home the legislative perks, and yet it would seem like the higher Teresa Paiva Weed has risen to power in the state firmament, if you will. She's actually worked against the island, hasn't she?
Absolutely. And, whether it's the right side of the dial or the left side of the dial as far as political slant, I'm hearing it from Democrats and Republicans that they feel not just forgotten, but they feel like they're being taken advantage of by Miss Paiva Weed. And there is a resentment that is I've never seen anything like it. It's pretty astonishing to see somebody that says to me, "I've voted Democrat all my life. I would never vote for a Republican ever, but you have my vote." And you don't know how many hundreds of times I've already heard this in the last couple of weeks.
Right, and because you're talking to people who have real investments in the community. I mean, nothing says community spirit more than a willingness to plunk down whatever few shekels you're able to pull together and open up a business. All right, you're willing to take that leap of faith, that you can do what a lot of people can't, which is to successfully shepherd a product, a manufacturing process, a service. So you've got a real stake in the community. You've raised your children there. Your family's there. I assume you own a home. On top of that, you've taken that next step to incorporate a business. Does she have any real stake in the community, or is she nothing more than a pawn to the political winds? I mean, is there anything there that compels her, I guess, to support the island?
I would think so. She's grown up in that community. I don't know her personally, but she's grown up in the community. She has a lot of ties. She has a lot of people that she knows. And the bottom line, the last few years, there's been bill after bill that has directly impacted the people of Aquidneck Island, but Newport in general. Things like the toll. It was a no-brainer. There was nobody. You couldn't find nobody for the toll.
Mm-hmm.
This casino, you can't find any. It's one out of. It's very few that support this casino, and so she's directly going against the wishes of the people she's representing.
Now we just had let's talk about the casino for just a couple minutes. We got a few minutes before the next break. You just had a referendum, 2 years ago?
Yes.
And most would argue that it was trounced, wasn't it?
Yes.
So you had this vote to bring up, at the state level to approve the casino bill. There was clearly a problem with the vote. She worked overtime, didn't she, to make sure that got on the ballot?
She didn't just work overtime. She did another one of her late-night session where she called the session back in after the week before they had voted against it. They didn't have enough votes, and she got the vote she wanted. And it's wrong. The bottom line is it's wrong.
Talk about the casino's impact. On one hand, let's juxtapose potential tech development, and I'm not an expert on the city of Newport. All right, I sadly I don't get out there enough. Hope to get out more. Hope to meet some of the people at No Casino. That part of the town is ripe for some of the tech development that you talked about earlier in the show, correct?
Right. There's actually been a number of people who have actually called for what we're calling a North End hub, where we can create a hub, a tax-free hub, where we can bring in businesses that, like I was saying earlier, that are innovative, that are going to employ people, grow. It could be a company that has just 2 or 3 people right now. But, Apple Computers had 1 person in a garage at one time.
Right.
And these are the kind of companies that we hear about all the time. We hear about these companies that are these online companies or these companies that create a special product. And a couple of years ago, they were in somebody's basement of a house, and now they have hundreds or thousands of employees. And all those people, again, they buy houses, they raise their kids in the neighborhoods, they go to the grocery store, and they invest into their community. And this is what's called revenue. Common sense is gone in Providence. It's been gone for a long time. We're sitting here thinking that if you were to talk to an average taxpayer, an average worker, they know of the demise of the state. But you read the websites of the politicians in power in this state, especially Senator Weed, and you would think that we are just the number 1 state in the country for innovation. And it's inexcusable. And this is one of the reasons why I have no political experience, but I believe some of my business knowledge will at least help us get out of the worst. We're on the bottom. There's nowhere else but up, and that's where I'm at right now.
Well, that's outstanding. You know, I work up near Boston, and, you know, I work right in the heart of the biomedical industry up there. The biomedical industry used to be located in New Jersey. A half a dozen small firms started in the Boston-Cambridge area, took advantage of a natural inclination of the local schools, the local talent pool, and started a few businesses. They spun off and started a few more businesses. All of a sudden, 10 years later, you've got a multi-billion-dollar industry capitalized right in the heart of the Boston area, really sustaining the economy into the next century. That can happen here in Rhode Island. We have everything we need for it. It just needs the right environment.
We do have a company like that in Newport that did start up a few years ago, and they create from grease from restaurants. They create a fuel, and there's no government money going into that business. But now they have 50 employees.
There you go. We'll be right back after the break. AM 790, The Coalition on Talk Radio.
Attention gardeners, farmers, growers, homesteaders, and horticulturalists. Coming soon to 1889 Post Road in Warwick, Rhode Island, it's The Grow Store. For all your indoor gardening supplies, it's The Grow Store. Mike's Professional Tree Service offers top-of-the-line tree removal, trimming, stump grinding, stump removal, and so much more. Mike's Professional Tree Service will do everything to safeguard your home and property and is fully licensed and insured. Call them today at 401-823-7485 for a free estimate on tree service, tree removal, trimming, and tree care. That's 401-823-7585. Mike's Professional Tree Service are the tree experts serving all of Rhode Island. Online at mikesprotree.com. That's mikesprotree.com. Attention gardeners, farmers, growers, homesteaders, and horticulturalists. Coming soon to 1889 Post Road in Warwick, Rhode Island, it's The Grow Store. For all your indoor gardening supplies, it's The Grow Store. Midday Records is a label that is comprised of local artists and exists for the sole purpose of helping other local artists find new opportunities and to help build a more thriving New England music scene. Midday Records hosts the area's fastest-growing music-related networking event, the Midday Social, books Midday Records presents shows throughout New England, releases compilations featuring local music, promotes bands through the Midday blog, are the co-founders of Music for Pause, and has recently started an artist development and management division. Stay up to date with Midday Records by checking them out on your favorite social media site like Facebook and Twitter, and find them online at middayrecords.com. That's middayrecords.com.
We're back. The Coalition on Talk Radio.
White man dancing.
Tony, where can they find us on social media?
Don't forget to check out coalitionradio.us on Facebook, facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on Twitter @coalition_radio. Don't forget that we are on iHeartRadio, so if you're going on vacation this summer, you're going to go on a 6-hour road trip, you could download 6 coalitions, and that would be your entertainment for your road trip.
Right, and the kids would definitely be asleep.
And jumping out the window, perhaps.
We're here, we're calling Mr. Smith Goes to Halitosis Hall. Mr. Smith, how can people contribute to your campaign?
Well, it's very easy. It's MikeSmithForSenate.com, and that's not a numerical 4, it's a FOR, MikeSmithForSenate.com. And there's numbers of ways to help. We I don't want to sit here and beg, but
it's okay. We do it every week.
I ain't too proud to beg, but you know what? We do need help because we're not just going against Piva Weed. We're going to be going against the unions and the groups that are going to come in to make sure that the state can stay in last place and stay worst in the country, because that's their goal.
You know, we through the coalition We talked to a number of folks who are conservatives, libertarians, even progressives across the state. I think we can all, despite our political differences, agree that we need to make change, and Mr. Smith here represents a lot of great ideas for change. You know, you don't live in the district. This is one of the issues with state government. You know, a few thousand people vote on a post that can affect the entire state. So here's your chance. You may not be able to vote for him, but imagine, send him $5 or $10. If all the people that I listen to and hear whine and kvetch on social media about the weed, about what's happening in the state, just shell out a couple of cups of coffee, all right? You know, that means real impact, real change on a local election like that. It's the $5, the $10, the $20 that it can add up. So, you know, I don't want to hear people complaining about the weed next year if you couldn't pony up $5 or $10 or $20 to help out this campaign. Every Rhode Islander with a conscience needs to contribute to his campaign. You know, we were talking about business. You know, you were going to, before the break, you were going to go into an example, I guess, of an unnamed company that had real potential here in the state. Tell me about it and tell me what happened.
Well, a business that I used to deal with, and unfortunately I lost them as a customer because they moved away, but a business that was based in Newport. They manufactured a beautiful sailboat, and about 2 years ago, when there was another strange funding going on by the state to a baseball player that wanted to start a video game company, this company employed about 15 people, and they went to the state trying to get some help so they could grow.
Well, let me just jump in. When you talk about a company like that employing 15 people, what type? I mean, those are some good jobs, aren't they? I mean, those are.
Yes.
I mean, we'll talk about the type of person that works in an environment like that.
Well, you obviously have some front office folks, but the majority of it is skilled labor, people that, you know, IRIS, the International Yacht Restoration School, or the Landing School in Maine would put out, people that are skilled laborers in systems and people that are laborers in fiberglass and woodworking. And also, and when I'm talking systems, boat systems are not like, you know, a transistor radio. Boat systems are extremely involved. You can't even flush a toilet on a modern boat, and it's electronic. So right. It's very, there's a lot of computerized things, and so these are skilled laborers.
Right. These are the kind of jobs we desperately need here in the state.
Right.
All right. So I jumped in there. Excuse me. Just go forward.
Oh, no.
What happened?
So the state basically didn't even respond, and after a while, North Carolina came knocking and offered them a free building for 10 years, no taxes for 10 years, and this company now employs 75 people down in the Outer Banks of North Carolina.
Wow. So let's then put this in the right perspective. So it's an it's an industry that's native to the state for which there is an existing market and existing infrastructure. You've got plenty of available land and industrial space for this industry to grow. The talent pool is already present in the state. Essentially everything you need, when I talked about before the break, the biotech, everything that sort of, I'll call it that biosphere, that industrial biosphere already exists, that cocoon-like nature, the supporting business, all the things that you need to be successful in whether it be marine engineering, marine construction, already exists in the state. You've got people, I would imagine these people already had a fair high level of expertise in this, a proven track record?
Right.
Okay, so you had that. On top of that, you had not some freshman rep, not some, you had the president of the Rhode Island State Senate who was in a position to advance that, and at roughly about that time, or in the years leading up to it, you had a Newporter who was the head of the Economic Development Commission, correct?
Correct.
And yet, nothing.
Sadly enough, it's at that time the state was consumed like it does get. The state gets consumed on one issue, whether it's a casino or whether it's Kurt Schilling. And at that time, they were in love like teenagers to Justin Bieber to Kurt Schilling.
And so, when I talk about someone with your background, you're one of those people that, and even though you're in your own personal business is, beyond its infancy, but still in sort of that early growth mode, you're one of those people that I talk about who's a 30-year overnight success, aren't you? I mean, it's taken you in a lifetime to get to this point where you could steward a business in your industry. And we had all of that here, and yet those folks got crickets. Those folks got nothing. They got no support. What does that say about the quality of leadership at the state level? More importantly, what does that say about the individual in place, Ms. Weed's ability to be in touch with the constituency? I mean, is she part of this community at all? Does she reach before you had your business, right? Or sorry, while you were growing your business? Was there at any one time before you had any political aspirations that she reached out to you?
You know, this is we almost thought of doing a YouTube ad of a CSI investigation of trying to find, have you seen this person? Because
you've seen the weed.
Because basically, I know a lot of people in the business. I mean, when I get up in the morning, I go have breakfast in town. I have coffee. I know a lot of the restaurants. I do laundry. I know, and
you live it and
I have
breathe
been
it.
asking for the last few weeks, and no business owner I know has ever met Miss Piva Weed.
So this is your own little Where's Waldo? Where in the world is Teresa Piva Weed?
It seems to be.
Yet, rhetorically, she routinely gives vent to the need to develop smart economies. I mean, what's smarter? What's wicked smarter than the marine engineering? What's wicked smarter than high-end hospitality?
Well, Pat, it's great to talk about all these things, but when you're in business and something isn't working for a period of time, you have to figure out another way to make it work because the business will go under. But we can't. In this case, we just continue to suck off the taxpayers and nickel and dime them. And when we make mistakes, like we're doing, when the state makes mistakes, like with 38 studios and what it will do with the casino if it gets it passed, the taxpayers are going to have to bail it out. That's
Right.
what's going to happen.
Right. Fair to say that the $12 million this year that we're going to spend on 38 studios, that would have made some pretty good tax incentives for people in your industry, wouldn't it have?
Yeah, but I'd like to see a lot of that money go to an independent prosecutor who will open the door on all these people, a lot of whom are up there at the State House, and expose what's going on up there.
Are you willing to say for the record that she hasn't done enough to pursue the investigation?
Well, she was able to make calamari more of an item than the 38 studios, but I guess calamari is a pressing issue.
Right. So, if you were in her position, and the fact that your administration and your choices are intimately tied into what happened at 38 Studios, I guess, is it fair to say we can't expect an open door on that, an open window into what happened there anytime soon?
If I were to somehow win this seat, the first thing I would be asking for investigations on a number of things, including why we spend so much per mile for repairs on our roads, yet we're the worst infrastructure in the country.
Boy, we're out of time. Tony, give us those famous outgoing words.
CoalitionRadio.us on Facebook, Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio, on Twitter